Welcome to the Traders Clinic, your regular shot in the arm of trader insights, philosophy and knowledge, brought to you by two professional money managers, Ali Crooks and Charlie Burton.
In each episode, we cover all things from the world of trading and your burning trading questions.
We do indeed. And
Right.
what have we got this month?
Right, so the subject is a highly profitable trading approach, but it's not easy. So this one's for you to start with.
Yeah, this is something that not everyone's aware of, but anyone who's experienced is aware of this. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy, and that is adding to your winners. And that's something that I do a lot of. And conceptually, it makes sense. People would say, oh, okay, well, add to your winners. So you get in here, price goes up a bit, you get your initial stop moves up, gets at some point moved up to break even. So you've now got no risk on the trade. But so therefore you're freed up to add another position, another element of risk. So let's say you risked 1% on the first element. That's now got zero risk because your stop's moved up because price has been going higher. And you look for your next entry to add to the trade. So rather than it just being a singular trade from here to here and you exit up here, you've actually got in here, you've moved your stop up, you've added a bit here, and then maybe you've at some point moved the stop up there, and maybe you've even had another add in over here, and it gets to the final target. And so it's the same trade, but you've just managed to get more bang for your buck out of it. So that's being very simplistic, in simple terms, the concept there. So why is it not easy? It's not easy for a variety of reasons. One is that traders love it once their stops at break even. Once they're like, oh, it's like a massive relief. Oh, I've got no risk on my trade anymore, risk-free trade. And so psychologically, I find that once traders have got into profit, they don't want to embrace new risk anymore. And so not on that particular trade. They're now right. They're happy. They're happy. They can see their open profit, stop's been moved up. They don't want to do that. So it's not easy in that regard. And I'm not saying, and certainly this isn't for everybody. This is just another way of trading. So it's not that you have to trade this, but it is a profitable approach, but it's not going to be right for everyone, partly because of psychology. And if your psychology isn't there for it, then it's not, I often say, you've got to earn the right. Well, you've got to earn the right to start doing this sort of trading. How is your trading as it currently is? How do you feel when you do get your stop to break even and all of that? One way to earn the right and start, if you thought, I like the idea of that concept, is, okay, so your first trade position, let's say you were risking 1%, your stop's been moved to break even and you want to, and you've got a target up here. So you see another opportunity to add a second entry. Well, maybe just put a much smaller entry in on the second entry. So that would be, so you're only risking 0.2 of 1%. So whatever happens, you're not going to give it all back and whatever. So it's not going to be easy and for different reasons, but it is highly profitable. The other, psychologically, it will be tough because you've been in a nice profitable trade and then they roll all the way back over. And you could say, and then what a trader will say is, if only I'd have just been in with that first position, then it would have just been a break-even trade. Or maybe I'd have even moved the stop into a bit of profit by the time it rolled over. Whereas a trader who's adding in here, if it rolls over, they're going to have a net loss. Whereas the person who doesn't add in is not going to have a net loss at all. So it's not for everybody for those reasons. But for someone who is okay with embracing losses, then when they pay out in a big way. And those, for me, are the big 6-figure trades. And so that's what I'm looking at when I'm doing a big add-in trade scenario. Not every trade is going to be an add-in scenario. But when they are, then they can be, very large. Yeah.
I think it's very important to highlight that I just picked up on the fact that you're not doing it on every trade. And also the other thing that you've got there is it's relative to the picture and the belief and the framework of the overriding
analysis,
trade.
yeah.
Because if that isn't there, I think one of the reasons why it would be, we've said here, it's highly profitable but not easy, is because a lot of traders, they're in and they're out and they're trying to bank 1.2, 1.2R or 1.3R on a trade. So they're all, the framework of how they currently trade wouldn't be suited. And then before you know it, they're trying to edge in tiny little bits, but their overall trade isn't actually geared for that. So I think it's an evolutionary thing, and it's certainly something that I will do on certain trades. You're doing it, but it wasn't something I was doing. I wasn't doing it on day one or day three. So again, a lot of these things, and I think the important thing for listeners is this idea of earning the right to do this. You've got to have had experience, and I always say to new traders is just trade straight in, straight out, and show yourself that you can place 30 trades where you can actually have the discipline to go, I'm in here, my stop's here, my target's here. And if you've got the data and you can see that you could run trades for longer, you don't necessarily have to run the initial trade for longer. You can edge in, like you said, and I think I'm so pleased you said about going in initially with smaller amounts, because you don't have to risk the same amount as the initial trade. So it's not, like you said, it's not easy, but it can be highly profitable if it's done correctly.
Well, these are the sort of trades where, these are the 10, 20, 30R trades or more. One of my trader that I know did 93R on a trade like this. So but they will frustrate you. You've got to have that thick skin to deal with the ones, because plenty of them will just pull back and roll over and amount to nothing. And trader A, who's just done it as what I call a vanilla trade, so a standard trade, and just taken one position, and by the time they're in a nice profit, and it might trail all the way over, and they just get trading stopped out, maybe for still a bit of a profit. Whereas trader B, who's added, they're going to have a net loss. And so again, you have to have a thick skin. You have to be all right with losing trades, but seeing the bigger picture. So the way that you see the bigger picture is you look at your overall trading from a net profitability perspective rather than win rate perspective. So you look at overall profitability rather than win rate. So someone who says, actually, I'm okay with a 30% win rate, but I know my profitability for this particular style of trading is I'm going to be much more profitable doing this, then great. But you've got to be emotionally right for it as well. For other people, they will never be emotionally right for it, and there's nothing wrong with that either. And that's why we've said it's a highly profitable way of trading, but it's not going to be for everybody. And also, I'm glad you highlighted it. It's only really on those trades where the potential that from the entry to the exit potential is quite large anyway. Because you've got to have a big distance between where you got in and your ultimate profit target in order to be able to add a couple of times along the way. If your ultimate profit target is 1.2R, you're not going to be adding to it. Even a 2R, you wouldn't be adding. No. We're talking about trades where by your profit target is probably 5R plus anyway, let's go with that. And so that, by time price gets to maybe 2R into profit or so, that might be a point where you can be adding in. But again, we can't go into technicals because this is just a show. Yeah. But certainly it's those bigger picture trades where this is possible. But I'm just going to finish off on this, or you might want to add, but I love in trading taking myself outside of my comfort zone. Trading many, many years ago became too very comfortable just doing vanilla trading. So I love the thought of being in a profitable position, and then in my gut doesn't want to take a new position and add a new position onto the trade, because my stomach is saying, no, we're in a nice profitable position right now. Let's just stay with this.
This is all good. Everything's nice at the moment.
Cool. Everything's cool, Charlie. We don't need to do this. And so I like to be able to take myself out of my comfort zone and then say, no, I've got this big picture analysis. I'm gonna go with that. But not everybody's ready for that.
Well, it links into what we've said in other shows, which is consciously doing what in that moment you're not taking the easy path. You're emotionally like, no, I don't want to add in, but you're taking you're making the more difficult decision, which invariably most traders are not trying to do because they're trying to seek relief, trying to seek comfort. like we do naturally as humans. So in that moment, you're doing something that is challenging you, but actually you're also doing something that most traders wouldn't be willing to do. So again, that's why over time you can build it up. And I think the key thing is to know that over the short term you'll pay a price for it. It's not all roses when you start saying, "Oh, I'm just going to add in," and you're going to pay a price for that. And and then, like you said, it could be that you roll over and you end up being a percentage down on the trade that would have been a break even. So having the awareness.
And there's an emotional price to be paid as well, as we've said. The emotion of you're never in that getting into that comfortable point, because as soon as that stop has been moved up, it's time to add in again. So it's never comfortable. You're constantly taking yourself out. So like I said, this isn't for everybody, and there's a reason why it isn't. The masses don't want to trade. There's a reason why the masses don't want to trade this way, because they want to trade, and get comfortable. And for many of them who are successful, that's fine, and you stay where you are. I just always like to push it, but
push the boundaries.
There was a hedge fund manager last year who did this exact thing, and I think he made I think it was about 115% over the course of a year. For a hedge fund manager, is really solid. And he had a win rate of something like 24%. So, but of course, he had a small win rate because there's plenty of losers from when he's potentially adding into his trades, and then they just roll back over. But when the big ones come through, they more than make up for it. But it's not easy. So it's profitable, but not easy.
So our question today: what or is there anything more important than managing your risk? Oh, interesting question.
Is there anything more important?
Well, I think this is a bit subjective. I think there is. I personally think managing your confidence is more important. So I've always had the argument that if you're not managing your risk, you shouldn't be in the game anyway. So it's almost like managing risk. You hear the statement saying, the number one rule in trading is manage your risk. Well, yes, but to me it's a given. If you're not sticking to your plan and risking the appropriate amount for the strategy that you're trading or your level of confidence, then you shouldn't be trading anyway. So I almost think just you park risk management from that point of view. Now, you could argue when you're actively managing your risk or actively managing your trades, then that is important. You've got to stick to your plan. You've got to stick to your rules. But actually, you should set everything up in your trading. Although we've been talking about pushing the boundaries, over time, especially initially, you should be setting your trading up to make sure that you can be confident in what you execute. So even though you're pushing yourself with what you're doing, you're still confident in that approach. So I think managing your confidence and making sure that you're not always going to feel excessively confident about a trade or the position you're in, but doing everything you can to manage your confidence, I think, is really important. So risk is part of that, but it isn't the only thing that you need to manage.
Yeah, most things are intertwined in trading, so there's not always a difference. So that person said, is there anything more important than managing your risk? I guess, again, you and I are going to be essentially saying the same thing. The way that I would say it is managing yourself is more important than risk, but then if you're managing yourself, then you are going to be managing your risk anyway.
Yes.
So managing yourself will encompass what you've just said about managing your confidence, and but what I'm talking about is just essentially mindset in general, your overall psychology to trading. It's not to say that it's more important than risk management, because risk management would come under that psychology. If you've got good psychology, then you're going to manage your risk. So it's all encompassing. The technicals of trading are part of trading. But as I always say, without the psychological side of things, then I think there's very few traders who make it over the long run if they haven't managed their mindset. If they have to manage their mindset, then they're not feeling emotions and all of those sorts of things and getting frustrated and FOMO and fear, greed, all the emotions that they have. If they haven't managed it, those are the traders that we know, because those are the people that do get frustrated and then say, I'm taking some time out. What are you taking time out for? Because they've got emotion. It's because they've not been working on it. And you have to work on your mindset, your psychology, even when things are going well. That's the time to be working on it. Not going and look at it when you're going into a drawdown. It's too late then. You've got to be looking at it whilst everything's going well, and just keep reminding yourself of all the things that happen and the market's going to challenge me. I will be having another drawdown at some point. Because the more that you embrace all of that, embrace all that uncertainty and the things that are going to happen in the future, then you're ready for it when it does happen. So then you can bat it aside psychologically and it doesn't affect you so much. And I just don't think people spend enough time working on their psychology for when they really need it. Because when they really need it, that's when they're in a complete mess and, you know.
Yeah. Good. So manage yourself as well as manage your risk. They're interlinked.
Yeah.
On that note,
his name's Charlie Burton.
his name's Ali Crooks.
There you
We'll
go.
get it right sometime.
Trade safely out there.